We started from the actual breakup story. That was the departure point, and actually the departure point was this scene where the Mustanis has to leave for work, and the dog cries, and he returns, and then he collapses. So this was like the actual beginning. But then along the way, as writing the project together with a dear friend of mine, and the whole process became part of the script in the end. So the very first draft, it was a story within a story, but it was just a bit in the beginning and in the end. But along the way, this became really important. And I think along the way, it also, I mean, it started as a funny thing, like the process of trying to remember thing and what happened, disagreeing, etc. But along the way, yeah, I think it started to uncover other layers, and that have to do with identity, have to do with identity as a process of representation, like how we think we tell a story about ourselves in our head, and we believe that this is our reality, but quite often other people who see us, or they see a completely different story. So somehow this became part of the story. So there are these two friends who are trying to tell a story inspired by their lives, and this becomes a mirror to the narratives they both have for themselves.
And you say this, there are elements of a true story in here. There really was a Carmen.
Yes, there was. There was Carmen.
So this is but a lot of it is fictional. Well,
Yeah, of course. I mean, of course, a lot of it is fictional. A lot of it is. I mean, when we did the casting, from the casting till the shooting, it was like a 9 months period, and throughout this period, the script kept on I kept on revisiting the script, and so working with the actor was also something that really informed the story.
Was there was it tricky to balance the meta elements, which kind of take you out of the film, with the dramatic and the more personal elements that require you to be in it? Because it's quite unusual for a film to be able to balance that, to keep you kind of laughing at the film itself, but also you get completely involved with the characters.
I think that this was one of the biggest challenges in making this film throughout the process. In script writing, also in shooting, I mean, because also the actors, especially Yorgos, who has a thing, not a thing, how to say, he's quite easy with physical comedy. We always had to, keep an eye not to overdo it. Yeah, overdo it, not to somehow, not to overdo these jokes that are just for the sake of the joke, or again. So this was also when we started editing. This was again the battle again to try to find the right balance, and what was a surprising aid to find these balances. And it's a matter of first of finding balances, and then a matter of unifying, like having a scene where you were actually telling a joke against the characters, and then a few scenes later, having a scenes where you're meant to feel for the characters. So an unexpected, let's say, safeguard, was music. And just to give an example, this scene I referred to before, where Yorgos is he's leaving and he comes back. There's this music score which is extremely dramatic, baroque music. So the first part of the scene where the dog is barking, it's actually playing a joke on the situation. It's overly dramatic, but in a sarcastic way. And then this exactly the same piece of music, but nothing changes, plays a completely different role. It is there to track the audience and put it to feel compassion for the character who is collapsing.
The framing device of this beach, this rocky, kind of angled space with all these strangers wandering around and these two people kind of plotting and trying to work out where they want to go, that kind of becomes this kind of surreal framing device for the whole film. Was it tricky to film there because it's a public place? Did you have to keep people out, or were there people wandering around in it, or what were some of the challenge of filming in that location?
this is a very long list of the challenges. It's a real location. This is an actual cruising beach in the south of Athens. It's a very important, it's a landmark for the queer community of Greece. We shot there in May, so it was low season. So there were a few people there, and especially during the morning when we started our shooting. So we didn't have to, interact with too much with the people going there. We also had in the crew a young boy who was a local. He was a naturalist and regular there, so he knew the guys that are really regular there. Of course, it was a really, sloppy, rocky beach. So it was really tough for the crew. It was also, wind and there were waves and the airplanes. What made it extremely hard for the sound department. The actors were naked, so you couldn't add them, these tiny things. It was really, really challenging for everyone. But at the same time, it's a very beautiful place. And I mean, the thing is that all the scenes that take place there, they could actually be, from a narrative point of view, they could be taking place in a living room. They're just the two friends talking. Okay, they have some interaction with what's going on, but it's really not vital to the storyline. But I really wanted to be there because I think it's a very beautiful place. I really loved playing with all these. In order to compose the shots, we only had the rocks, the sea, the sky, and the bodies. So it was an exercise, a minimalistic exercise, which was very beautiful. And also, along the way, I realized that it's really important to have this story taking place in this cruising beach, because somehow it's a very minimal, low budget, restricted story, but having this place there, it puts it inside a frame, inside let's say, a community. And I think in cruising places, the queer community is exposed in its full spectrum, way more than you can see it in a gay bar. And I like to believe that the film pays justice to cruising places, portraying them not just as places for lust and, I don't know, shameful things, but also as places for tenderness, for being creative, for being playful, for feeling safe to be queer, to be trans, to be whatever. Yeah, that's why in the end the film somehow opens up to during the credit sequence we follow the other characters who all this weird queer fauna that meet and spend a day together in the beach with different agendas, but somehow create a ephemeral community, and then they disperse and each one goes to their own lives. I think I really cherish this experience because I've been in such a situation. I've been to this beach many times and I've had this feeling. I think it's a very beautiful and unique queer experience.
Yeah, it certainly sets this story apart because of the way that it approaches it, kind of in a joyous way, which is very nice.
Yeah, and I think that in these places there's so much joy and playfulness. Okay, casual sex and cruising is a part of it, and it can be dodgy, but it's also quite ridiculous at the same time, if you see it from another point of view. And it's also not all about that.
Yorgos, you, in those scenes especially, your costume is just your body. Was it daunting to play that? Did it make you nervous? Was it a challenge?
Well, hi everybody. Well, I didn't really have consciousness of what the movie was going to be and how things were going to be portrayed on the big screen. I didn't have consciousness of that when we were filming. So yeah, I have a background in being naked on live theater stages because of other work experience that I've done in the past. But this was I didn't have consciousness of what it was gonna be. So I also never visited this kind of beach before, Limanakia, and it was in the rehearsal process that I did it with Andreas and Zacharias, and we actually rehearsed this kind of scenes prior to filming, so we got an idea of what this can be. So we started taking our clothes off in that rehearsal period, so we got accustomed to that. So yeah, when we started filming, it felt like home. I don't know. It felt like proper, so to speak. And as I said before, Demosthenes being naked like that throughout the movie, because he's naked a lot throughout the. I think I don't remember anymore. What I said before, it's like a costume of him. It's like another facade, another personality. It's like how Maria Callas was wearing big gowns and performing opera. I think it's what makes the character himself. And I think it's a performative kind of personality that he does. So once I understood that, and this is what a notion that I had also in my background, doing naked performance theater, and once you understand that, then you're free to be in that costume. It was a fun ride.
Were there-
Just a small comment, because there has been a lot of discussion about the nudity in the film. I think if these were female bodies, nobody would pay attention. We're so not accustomed to watching male bodies naked, or male bodies objectified in a way. And so I think this makes kind of a difference.
Yeah, and the character is deepened along the way. Were there other things about Demosthenes that you identified with, that you could feel were part of you, or?
Well, yeah.
Like about his search for identity, or his
Yes.
relationships.
Well, the first thing that when I read the script and I really identified with the character Demosthenes is that he has multi kind of personalities, so to speak, that he knows how to perform in front of his mother, in front of his friend, in his work environment, things like that. So this kind of multi-facade personality, I share it with you. And it's frustrating and nerve-wracking, but also a fun ride if you get to meet me.
Okay, now we've got to talk about Carmen.
Oh yeah, let's do that.
How did you get along with Carmen? You had to build a relationship with her.
Yes, true.
And where did you find Carmen? Because she is a one-of-a-kind dog.
Yeah, she is.
And she's magic on screen.
Yeah, just to give a small trivia, she's obviously a mixed breed dog, and she was meant to be like this because she was an abandoned dog. We couldn't have her being a Labrador, So this means that she's one of a kind, because usually in films, when you have a dog playing, it's not one dog. In the shooting, they have like 10. That's why they're always purebred, like a Labrador or a Chihuahua. And they change every shot. They bring a new one so that they don't get tired or stressed or whatever. So this was an extra challenge. On top of that, she didn't have any training. And then I'll leave Yorgos to say the rest about their meeting.
You should have been in our first meeting with the dog. Oh my God. I was like, is this really gonna happen? Because this very small dog, when she saw me, she was like very, very scared of me. Like
You should say that the important information that she belongs to a lesbian couple.
Yes, that too.
Small-sized, non-hairy people.
Yeah, when she showed me, she was very, very scared of me, and she couldn't walk towards me, and had to rehearse scenes and things like that, as you can imagine. But yeah, after that, when we start filming, I don't know, it was a magical ride with Carmen. Nala, it's her real name. And because she also kind of shares the same kind of story with Carmen. She was abandoned twice in her actual life. And she has this fear in her eye always, and this frown look just like this in picture. It was like, you're scared to touch her. So yeah. It was not an easy co-worker, so to speak. But throughout the process of filming, and trying to get her to be accustomed to me, be next to me, having her on my arms, things like that, she really became a different dog by the end of the filming, because you should have seen
And you
her.
became a different man.
And I became a whole different person. You should have seen her in the final scene that we did. It was actually the pride scene, and we were very afraid of that, having this dog, this very frightened dog among all these crowds of people. But she was there, very, very social, playing with everybody. She was a completely different dog by the end of the film. So Kudos to that. Bravo, Zacharias.
Are there any questions?
It's one there.
Oh, yeah, over here. Oh, we've got a microphone.
Apologies for the voice. Would you say the growth is the other way round for, I'm not going to butcher the protagonist's name, that Yorgos very eloquently played, given that his character was very comfortable with his external nudity, but not with his internal vulnerability?
Are you asking? Well, I haven't never thought about like in this framing, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice. I mean, we see it at different phases of the character, and I think the one where he thrives is his sexual, no strings attached, where he feels the most confident of himself, and where he really fails is with his mother, where he's really diminished into a little child. Hello, my parents.
Oh, there's one over here.
Hi, no, thank you for such a great film. I was really curious about the thread about queer friendship that was in the film. I thought, so I'm like, I cannot pronounce the names of the characters, your character and the friend. I was just really curious about how that came about because I was really just struck by, I thought that, you know, in the end that there's somehow end together, there's a tension there. I'd love to just know the backstory of.
I mean, I think that queer friendships are really interesting relationships from a narrative point of view. They have so many layers, especially to be more specific, the friendship between gay men. They have all the traits that as friendships between straight men have, like they can be competitive or a bit boyish or foolish. At the same time, they have the possibility of being lovers. Many gay friendships are the outcome of failed loves, failed romances, failed dates, or even very successful relationships that in the end they become friendships. They also are family, and there's also another, I think, more abstract layer. I think through our queer friends, queer people, we do some kind of group therapy because we share a common trauma, most of us. So by being close to other people who have the same trauma and watching them, you know, how they deal, how it's expressed in their family, how it is expressed in their work, or how they grow older with it, I think it's really like equal to group therapy. So I think queer friendships are really important in complex and interesting relationships. And it was a really crucial fact in casting. I don't want to want to talk about casting.
Yes, it was a matter of chemistry. I think Zacharias and casting director Akis Gozulidis and Sotiria Marini did a wonderful job about it. We did casting for like a month or so. So it was like finding the perfect match that these kind of two people have the right chemistry, that they certainly can be friends. Not actually lovers, but there's a vice versa admiration in between of them. So, yeah, they knew I was gonna take the part, but they didn't tell me. So they were trying me out for like a month or so with different partners. So to have this specific, right chemistry that can feel right. So yes, I was doing this kind of back and forth things, trying out with different persons, and we found Andreas, which was, I think, was a perfect choice for that.
Yeah, because we liked Yorgos. We were confident about Yorgos, but we couldn't say it's Yorgos unless we knew who would be Nikitas. Because if we couldn't find the right match, I think the film would collapse if they didn't feel like equal on us. Although different, but equal.
Yeah. And Andreas really had this kind of very down on his feet, like core on his beliefs, like very. He has a very strong character that he created Nikitas in a very kind of strong way. So yeah, it was a equal relationship in between the two.
Oh, there's something back. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, thank you for the movie, first of all. There was this one scene where Thimios meets Demosthenes and the dogs start interacting around Nikitas. There is no way you rehearsed that. Kudos to the dogs for choreographing that scene.
No, kudos to the actors to playing with it and not being like looking at the camera and it's like.
Was it just one take and you just
Yes.
kept it? Was it more accidental scenes like that?
I mean, generally it was a very tight shooting schedule because we only had, it was actually a low budget film and we only had 25 days to shoot it. So I think this particular scene we only did 3 shots.
This is the first take.
Yeah.
It's the first take. It's the first take of those meeting actually each other. So it was like,
It was an accident. I mean, yeah, there were certain, I mean,
yeah.
especially when, where dogs are involved. Dogs tend to
Answering
improvise a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it was a happy accident.
Yes.
Was it tricky with Carmen because she wasn't a trained performer, and she has
Yeah.
a lot of important things to do.
We were lucky. I mean, really, this dog had an amazing progress throughout the rehearsals and the shooting. And what we did, we figured out a way. Whenever we had a scene with Carmen, we started by shooting her shots. So then the actors would play around that. So we knew that if Carmen went that way and not that way, although that was the intention, then the actor playing his shot would, follow that. But in the end, really, I mean, there is this scene where, towards the end, before the crying scene, where the Carmen is watching him tying his laces and then leaving, and Carmen walks to him and goes in between his legs. This was not planned. She did it on her own. So we're really lucky with this dog.
Hi, thank you for the film. Did you find it difficult to end the film at any point? It felt like it ended several times over. At the end, we had the point where they were walking across the rocks. Then we also had the point where you had the 2 characters in the car, and then also at the end where they wrap up the kind of meta narrative.
Yeah, it's true. It's kind of like a multiple ending. It's not a matter of difficulty. It was a kind of a choice to have this spread out ending. I mean, I could debate saying that this also contradicts the rules of screenwriting versus real life. Like in fiction, there's always feels like a very concrete closure ending, while in real life, there's no such thing as an ending unless it's, death. Yeah, but I really enjoy, as an audience of the film, I really enjoy this time into this whole long ending when the narrative moves to the other characters during the credit sequence, and we see these other people departing. For me, this is really important moment in the film.
Hello. I wonder about some of the symbolism in the film. Like, for example, the dad is never really seen, but he's always felt and present. And then he's also a shadow. And then I also wonder about the last scene in the boom, whether that was intentional.
Yeah. It was, it wasn't intentional to have it on screen. It was intentional to leave it at that and not erase it during the post-production. And having the dad outside, I mean, there's a moment in the film where the character says it's not very queer, fun, sexy to have a homophobic pensioner in the story. So, but also, it's, I mean, I think the film narratives really feed themselves from what they leave outside. It's always interesting in films, but there are things that you don't see. Like in Casablanca, we'll always have Paris. We don't have no idea what happened in Paris. So, but this really fits the feeling of the film. So, in that sense, this absent father that you only know a bit, it's I think it fits the narrative because it invites everyone in the audience to invest their own stories of bad dads or whatever, absent dads, in fill this gap with their own background.
I think 31, 32. And, this notion of friendship, gay friendship, and people having, affairs and boyfriends back and forth, things like that. You know, the prioritizing of things. That's the word. Yeah. It comes back and forth, like what you put in priority and what you got to sacrifice to be happy, things like that. I don't believe he was sure when he was making these kind of situations, but this kind of decisions, but his friendship and his love life. But I think he's gonna make the same mistakes. It's a relief now that he has his mother on board with him. So, and his father, is absent now. So one part of the story is healthy, resolved, so to speak. But yeah, I think he's gonna make the same mistakes.
And Nikita's will be Greece's Xavier Dolan.
Hi, thank you. That was incredible. I have a question. How was the film received in Greece, both in the queer community and the non-queer community?
And the film was released last summertime. It did quite well in the box office. It was for around 2 months playing in open air theaters. It was a bit of a challenge to screen it in open air theaters. Because first of all, because they only have 2 slots to screen 9 and 11 because of the light. Then they also have issues with their neighborhoods because many of these open air theaters are just in the middle of houses. So the neighborhoods, they open their window to have the night, to enjoy the night sky, and suddenly they see the movie. So it wasn't easy to be distributed. But overall, I think the queer community really, really enjoyed the film. The straight people, well, they also enjoy. I mean, there was a mixture of reactions. Some positive, some were shocked, some felt provoking. I will just give you a friend of mine. He's not Greek, he's Spanish, but he said he's a straight guy. He liked the film and he said, I'm really surprised by myself. I mean, I'm 45 years old. I've seen so much porn in my life. And I have never been exposed to two men having sex. So it's a fact. We haven't seen gay sex unless we are, after it. It doesn't happen to see it, although it's something that it's natural, as natural as this any other kind of sex. And another funny comment was by my aunt, who came to see the premiere. Very open-minded, very progressive. She said, "We knew about these things, but we haven't ever seen them. It was like a documentary." So I think, many people might know that there are gays, that there's some people have no idea about cruising. I think what I haven't verified this, but I think what is most shocking for many people who are not accustomed to gay culture and cruising culture is the fact that that cruising is not just the last full sense, that you can be with your friend, having a stupid conversation and really casual sex taking place quite close. I think this is quite shocking for the straight audience or for the unaware audience. But I think also that this is something very unique to the queer community, as I said before, and something that we should be proud about it. Because it's a very different approach to many things that are, really established in a certain way through the heteronormative, let's say, standards. How sex is done, how romance is done, how friendship is where friendship takes place, etc.
I was just wondering, it kind of goes from the question about sex. If you were tempted to have more, have less, like how did you? Also, like I come from Mexico, so like I think that when you're creating stuff, you're thinking like, oh, how the Mexican audience will receive it, but then I guess here's you can think like, oh, the conservative audience maybe won't like. So I'm just kind of curious, like, how did you balance the whole celebrating, but also maybe thinking about the audiences? Did you thought about how was that for you?
I was really naive about it. The script needed sex in certain scenes because we have this character exiting a relationship where sex had died, and we see a very interesting version of him in this, the relationship fading out. And it's really interesting to see how this guy enters the playground again, with sex, no strings attached. So it was really vital to the story. So all the scenes are there because we needed to have the scenes. And gay sex is a natural thing to me. It has happened to me. So I really didn't think about it. And I remember being surprised to realize that, so because we have nudity and sex, we're never going to play in China, in Japan, we're not going to be in theaters in the USA. I was really not thinking about it. I'm not sure if I was aware about it, what would happen. These are the good things of a low budget independent production, that there's no one who is thinking of making money from the film. So they let you do whatever you think. So it was actually a surprise and also, the surprise continued with the audience, because some people saw the film and said, this is pornography. I was like, oh, really? I was really surprised. Some other people saw it and felt it was really natural. But it's just a trivia. It's really interesting. In Greece, the film was only for adults, 18 plus. I think here too, or 16 plus here.
18.
15 plus. In France, they gave it for everyone. I'm just going to say that there's such a subjectiveness in this. I remember being in a screening in France, and there was entering to say hello. There was a mother with her boy who was in elementary school, obviously. And I was like, okay, there's no way they're going to stay to the end. And they stayed to the end. So, yeah, there's a lot of cultural factors that play around the depiction of male nudity, female, etc., sex, and all this.
And the only other thing I'd like to ask is, are there any other themes and ideas you want to tackle? What are you working on now?
Right now, I'm working a very different project. It's a crime drama set in northern Greece. It's a female-led story. By summertime. It's in the winter time. Yes.
And Yorgos, where can we see you?
I'm working on myself.
I recommend his Instagram feed.
Yeah.
It's very entertaining. So we just say thank you to
Thank you, guys.